Here we are on the front of our Dutchman Colorado 26 BHC. We're going to do a walkthrough on our unit and cover all of our components on it and give you some tips and operation for it. If you want more specific information about the particular product on your unit, then you can find that info in our videos on the Helpful Hacks section of our YouTube channel. For now, we're going to cover the components that are on this one, which should be very similar or the same as yours. So in the front here, we're starting off with our 7-way plug. 7-way plug plugs into our truck or SUV, and it will transfer all our blinkers, our brake lights, our running lights out to our unit, as well as a charge line for our 12-volt battery while we're traveling down the road. It will charge that up. We also have a 12-volt breakaway cable right here that will hook up for a safety mechanism. If something happens to our hitch, that breakaway pin will pull out, and if it's disconnected from that hitch, the brakes will be applied on the trailer and stop it. Behind that, next we have our power tongue jack. Our power tongue jack is 12-volt powered, so we need to make sure we have good battery power. And we have a light on here, and we also have our up and down button that will run that jack up and down. Now, in the event that this is not working, you do have a wire on here you can follow down, and it will bring you to a fuse. 12-volt blade fuse. You want to check that fuse, make sure that it's not blown. And if that isn't blown, you want to check your battery voltage on your battery. In the event that doesn't fix the issue and you have to manually override this jack, there's a cap right here on the back. We'll remove that cap. We'll see a nut in there, and we'll get our crank. Our crank will crank on here and manually run this jack up and down to get you out of that situation. Behind that, we have our dual propane tanks with our dual propane regulator. This is an auto changeover regulator. So once the tank that it is selected to goes dry, then it will automatically swap over to that other tank and give you a red indicator letting you know that tank needs to be filled or changed out. Behind that, we have our battery box where we'll load our battery and have all our connections there. And you'll also see some 12-volt resettable fuses under there. Those are automatic reset fuses. They will reset on their own. They go to such things as your slide out and some of your other jacks. And it is to reset in the event that there's over amperage. So once again, that system will heat up, it'll trip out to keep from damaging the component. If it continues to happen, you want to bring it to a shop and have them get it checked out. Otherwise, it will reset on its own and you'll be able to operate that mechanism. On the driver's side front of our unit, of course, we have our pass-through bay with our compartment door for access. We have magnetic clips to be able to hold that door on. Just inside the door right here, we are prepped for an inverter system. That inverter system would change 12 volts to 110. In the event we are dry camping, we don't have a plug-in wherever we're at, then that system can change that voltage so we can run some small appliances in our unit. So it is pre-wired for that already. You would just have to upgrade to the inverter. And it also has pre-wiring for a solar controller. A solar controller would convert solar energy to charging power for our battery system. We would also have to upgrade to our solar panels on the roof. So all that wiring is there. We just have to add the components if we want to do that. On our unit, we have one slide out. This slide out is 12-volt controlled. There's an electric motor ram that is underneath the underbelly. It's not visual. That motor will run your slide out in and out. We have more information on those particular slides. It is a through frame slide. You want more information on that, you can find that in the Helpful Hacks videos. Here we have our twist lock plug-in for our 30 amp service. So a couple things on this is we want to make sure that before we plug this in and before we plug in on our power pole that we don't have anything on in our unit as far as appliances go. So turn our AC off and all those things. That way it doesn't create a surge for that appliance. This is inserted by lining up your prongs on your unit. And there's only one way that it can go. Slip it in, slight turn to the right to lock it in, and then you have a little retainer ring that you're going to tighten up on there to keep that plug from falling out. Then at that point, then you plug in your service on your pole. You want to make sure that that's disconnected before you plug this in so you don't have any arcing whenever you do that. At that point, plug it into your pole and you have power to your unit. Here we have our outdoor cable hookup. This is to hook up to the actual campsite if they have cable. You run that coax from the cable connection to here, and then we can go on the interior and scan for channels. Here at the bottom we have our sewage dump. We have our large hose that would hook to this and then go to our sewage station. We have two handles on here. We have our gray handle for our gray tank, and our black handle for our black tank. Our gray tank holds our shower water and our sink water. If you have that hose connection hooked up to a sewer connection, then you can go ahead and leave that gray valve open all the time and let that water drain out during the duration of your camping trip. If you want to leave it closed and have to come out and dump it when it gets empty, that's perfectly fine. But as long as you're hooked up to that water hose, you can let that one drain out constantly. Our black tank, however, that is our sewage from our toilet. That's our solids and liquids that we put down there. And we want to keep that valve closed all the time unless we are dumping our tank. The reason being is if we leave that tank open and we allow any liquids to drain out of there, it's going to cause what's called dry tank. And the solids that we put in there are going to dry up, and it's going to cause a problem to where that tank would have to be replaced. So make sure that valve is closed until you're full or you're ready to dump, one of the two. And at that point, you open that valve, you dump all your sewage that's in there out, and then we have a black tank flush located on the back of the unit. I'll show you in a few. And we'll hook a water hose up to it, and there's a spray port inside the tank that will spray and flush it out of the tank to the sewage line. Now we want to run that, check our meters, and make sure that we have that tank nicely cleaned out. Whenever we're done with it, we can close our valve right here and let it fill up with a couple gallons of water, either through that black tank flush, or we can go to our toilet and do it manually by holding that pedal down. We want to leave a couple of gallons of water in that system even though we're not using it. That way any solids that may still be in there don't dry up and stick to the walls of the tank. We also want to add our chemicals in there at that time as well to help decompose anything that may be in there and reduce any smells. We do this whether we're storing it or we're just flushing that tank out for use right after it, whatever the case may be. You want to fill it back up with water and leave several gallons in there, as well as add our chemicals. Here on the rear of our unit, we are pre-wired for a backup camera system. That way we can monitor what's behind us while we're driving or when we're backing up. We have our full-size spare mounted to our bumper. Our bumper also doubles as a storage center. If we pull the caps off the end of it, we can take our sewer hose, clean it out, and then store it inside there so we don't have a nasty mess in our front compartment. We'll also notice on the bottom corner, we can see through the frame here, we have a red and a blue line with valves on it sticking out of the floor into there. Those are our low point drains. Those low point drains are used when we're getting ready for winter time or we just want to drain all the water out of our plumbing system. We open those valves hot and cold, and it will drain the water out of our system. We prepare for winter using that in our winterization process so the water doesn't freeze inside the pipes. Here we have our city water connection. Our city water connection would be a hose coming from a hose bib at the campsite. We run to here, we hook it up, we turn that water connection on, and it will supply water throughout our camper to all of our fixtures. We can put an inline filtration system in there if we wish as well. Here we have our black tank flush. That black tank flush is used to rinse out that black tank during our dumping process like we talked over there on our dump station. We don't have factory supplied roof access to this unit, so you would have to get an A-frame ladder to get up on the roof and check it out. This is the responsibility of the customer every 60 to 90 days to make sure we are checking the sealant and the rubber on that roof, as well as the sealant around all of our trim, our lights, our windows, and everything around the sides of the unit. There are different types of sealant that we use on the roof and on the sides. We need to check our owner's manual with the manufacturer to confirm what we need to use, or our service department. We want to make sure we're checking it every 60 to 90 days because that sealant can open up and crack open, it can peel off, so on and so forth. Over time it will kind of decompose, right? So we want to make sure we're not allowing water entry into our unit. As these things flex down the road, when we're traveling, it can create openings. We can also hit tree limbs and stuff on our rubber roof. This can create openings. This is all customer maintenance, just like maintaining your vehicle by going to get the oil changed in it. So we need to stay on top of that because any water entry will be considered customer maintenance and you will be stuck with a bill, unfortunately. So manufacturers do not participate in anything like that unless the unit has been maintained properly. On the passenger side of our unit, we have another compartment door for our pass-through bay, and here we have our Lippert stabilizer jacks. These stabilizer jacks have a 12-volt motor on them, so push of a button you can run those stabilizer jacks down. Now these are stabilizer jacks only. They are meant to reduce movement inside our unit, not level our unit. If we want to level our unit, we need to get some stacker blocks or pieces of wood and level by putting those under our tires when we're backing up to level that unit left to right. We'll use our tongue jack in the front to level that unit from front to back. These are not intended to lift your camper or put a lot of weight on them because they can and will collapse, causing damage, and that would be customer pay situation. Manufacturers are not going to participate in any damage to these components. So once we have our unit leveled, we extend them down, we put a little bit of weight on those jacks, and that's it. We don't want to overextend them and cause any damage to them. And once again, 12-volt component, they do have resettable breakers in line on them, so if the system goes down, give it a few minutes and see if that breaker will reset and try it again. In the event that it doesn't work, there is an override for that on the other side. We'll go over now. So here we are back on the driver's side of our unit, opposite of our motor in and our switch, and we have this handle. We can see this handle has a little slice in it, and it will line up with the post on that jack. We line it up, and we can manually run that jack up and down if we need to. So of course we have a nice patio awning installed on our unit, 12-volt controlled. Pushing a button will run that awning out and run it back in. And we also have our awning lights under here as well, also 12-volt powered. Now, a couple things we need to know about our awning. Our awning is a sunshade only, not an umbrella. So anytime there's bad weather coming in, we want to roll that awning in. Anytime it's very, very windy, we want to roll that awning in. It can become like a parachute when you're out there with enough wind, and it will rip this off. So we need to make sure we do those two things. The third thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that awning is pitched either to the front or the rear. The reason we do this is for water runoff from our AC or any light dew or anything like that that may be able to get on the awning. We want that awning to be able to run that water off. If we don't, it will pool up with water in the middle of the unit and it will collapse. So we do that by simply pulling down our arm right here, and then we're going to tighten up this knob, and that will pitch our awning right here to the front. We can also do that in the rear if we wish as well, just so long as it's pitched to one side or the other. Whenever we're ready to retract our awning, we loosen that knob and we allow that arm to go back up. This is to help, once again, drain any little remnants of water off of that awning during your stay. Anytime you leave your camper for an extended period of time, I highly suggest you go ahead and roll that awning in just to be safe. That way, if anything happens while you're gone, it doesn't cause any damages to it, because once again, that will be customer pay and not a warranty claim. Our entry door has friction controlled hinges, so you'll feel some resistance on that door. This is to help if the wind blows, it won't slam that door shut, and we don't have to worry about any latches on our door. We do have a screen door that connects onto there. We can pull down that latch and it will go into our frame, so we can keep it open when we have nice weather. To reattach, just push it up against that entry door and it will realign. We have our entry steps here with a couple of hinge points. We just lift those steps up and we can restore them, and to pull them down, you pull in those bars and it will open back up. Now, these pivot points where the steps turn, we want to lubricate those every so often. We want to use silicone type lubricant spray, not WD-40 or anything, because it will have a lot of road debris and stuff attached to it, like dirt and things like that, and it'll mess up those hinge points and make it actually a lot harder to use. So silicone type lubricant on that only. Also, under our awning, we have our 110 GFCI protected outlet. In the event that this is not working, we want to go to that main GFCI in our bathroom that we'll talk about later, and there is a reset button there. We'll get to that when we get to that point. Here we have our Furrion tankless on-demand water heater system. This means that you have continuous hot water. You won't run out unless you run out of water or propane. We'll go over the operation of that as well as our furnace when we get to the interior. That furnace cover is just there for access for technicians. Same thing for our Furrion cover here. Both of them do have an exhaust, and when operated, you will have some hot air come out of those vents. Up here, you'll find a vent for our range hood. That vent does have a latch on there to keep it closed when we're not using it. We need to push it a little bit to make sure that system is closed so no insects or anything can grow nests in there. When we are using that range hood vent, we want to make sure that it's popped open. That way that air will exhaust out of there. Moving back down our rear, we have our freshwater connection. Our freshwater connection right here leads to a storage tank for our freshwater. We take a water hose, we put it in here, we could fill it up. We monitor by our convenience center on the inside that will go over here shortly. And we fill that tank up to the desired amount. When we are ready to use it, we kick on that 12-volt water pump, and that will supply water to our fixtures inside our unit. If we don't have a water bib or something to hook up to at the campsite, this is what we would use. We're dry camping, we're at a rest stop or pulled over the side of the road, whatever, we need water. You're gonna want a little bit of water in your tank, kick that water pump on, and you can supply yourself with some water. Now, we don't want to leave that water in there if we don't need it. It is added extra weight to our unit, so we want to drain it out. We do have a pipe right under this J-wrap with a little valve on it. We open that up and that'll drain the water out of that system. Another thing is, if it's been sitting in there for a little while, you want to drain it out if we're not using it so that water doesn't become stagnant over time. We do have a little rail right here. This is for the grill or griddle that comes with your unit. You'll attach it right here, and we have an LP quick connect line right under the J-wrap there that leads to our propane tanks up front, so you'll have propane supplied to your griddle. We also have another set of LCI stabilizer jacks right down here at the bottom. Once again, stabilizer jacks only, not leveling jacks. And in our last compartment right here, we have a refrigerator, little small dorm refrigerator, 110 operated. And one thing that we need to remember about this refrigerator is anytime we plug in our unit, this is turning on. Of course, it has a little small freezer section, the rest is the refrigerated section. But what's going to happen is it's going to cool, it's going to create condensation, it's going to create frost or ice in there. Whenever we unplug that unit, all that's going to melt. It's going to create a puddle of water down at the bottom, and it will leak out of the gaskets of this door. This is airtight sealed, not watertight. So that water will leak out and it will damage the wood components under here. So customer responsibility, whenever you unplug your unit, come in and clean out this fridge, get the water out of there, wipe it all down, and this will also prevent mold and mildew from happening in that fridge as well. As we walk in our unit, to our left we have our convenience center. We have our meter panel right here that will tell us what the level of our battery is, our fresh tank, our black tank, our gray, and if we had a secondary gray tank, it would tell us that as well. This is a generic panel that they put in here, so we only have one gray tank, so we're going off of gray tank 1 on this system. This DSI fault light up here is if we had a different water heater system. We had the Furrion tankless, so you can ignore that light right there. Our awning extend and retract button, our exterior lights, which is our awning lights, and we have our interior lights right here that will shut our interior lights off and on. We have that 12-volt water pump for our fresh tank system to be able to supply water to our fixtures. If we are hooked up to city water and we have water there, we want that system off. There's no need to have it on unless we are pulling from that tank and we don't have a city water connection. Also, we have our slide out switch in and out right here as well. Once again, that is a through frame slide out, 12-volt initiated. So if you want more information on that, we have that in the helpful hacks section. All of these components are 12 volts. If you have any issues with them, you want to go check the blade fuses in that 12-volt center that we'll go over a little bit later on. Here in our living room area, this is where we would mount our TV. We can see up here we have a 110 outlet and a line guard plate. That line guard plate has a coax that will run to our TV. We have 2 buttons on there. One says antenna power and one says Wi-Fi power. Antenna power is when we are searching for air channels. So we're not hooked up to cable, we're searching for the air channels that are out there. We want that antenna power on. This boosts the antenna that we have on the roof to pick up more channels in the area. It's a 12-volt boost. So we want that light on whenever we are doing that. When we are searching for cable channels at the campground, we have that coax hooked up over there. We're scanning for channels. We want that switch off. That 12-volt boost will scramble the channels on that cable center, so you won't receive them properly. The other button is the Wi-Fi power. If we choose to upgrade our antenna system into a router system as well, when we turn that on, it will provide us with an amplified Wi-Fi signal if the campground has one, or you can go even further and subscribe to a 4G or LTE plan, and the cell phone provider will provide you with Wi-Fi wherever you're at. Next, we have our fireplace down here. Let's go over that. Here we have our fireplace. We have a sensor right up here in the top right. we have to aim that remote at to turn it on. We have our Celsius and Fahrenheit temperature we can change to. And right here, this little flame icon is going to change the dimness of our flame. If we want to change the lighting of our flame, we hit the light bulb on the screen down here at the bottom, and it'll give you some different options right there. If we want to operate our heater on a timer, once again, electric heater, it is going to be this button right here. It looks like a clock, and when we push it, we can see some times pop up: 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, all the way up to 8, and then it will go to 0 hours, letting you know that that timer is off. If we want to change our temperature, we'll use one of these two buttons at the bottom, and we can see once again we have a temperature down there, and we will go ahead and raise it until it kicks on, or lower it, we want it to kick off, or we can keep going until it says on, and that heater will stay running all the time. We kick it up one more time, and it's going to say OF, meaning that that system is off. In our kitchen, we have our standard 110 microwave, as well as our hood vent and light right here. Remember, that hood vent fan that we have here is going to exhaust out of that vent outside. We need to make sure that that vent is open whenever we use that and closed when we're not, so no insects or nests can build up in there. We have our stovetop right here. Stovetop has a glass cover. When we are in travel, that glass cover needs to be down over this stove. That way we don't cause any damage and it breaks while during travel. We have that 3-burner stove. This runs off your LP tanks in the front. You want those on. Pick your burner, turn the knob, and we ignite. Now, if you have air in your lines, that is going to take a lot longer to do. And it's going to take even longer on some of the other appliances. So I always tell customers, if you just pulled your unit out of storage, or you just changed your tanks out, and that system has been off for a long period of time, whatever, you're going to end up having air in your system. So turn those propane tanks on. Come to here, either get a long stem lighter or use this igniter. You're going to turn that stovetop on, and you're going to try to light it right away. It's going to take 30 to 60 seconds possibly for it to light, depending on how long that system is, and you're purging all the air out of there. Once it's lit, give it a good 30 to 60 seconds of run time. Make sure we have a nice blue flame all the way around, and that will help make sure that we don't have any air in the system. We want to do this before we run things like our oven down here, or our tankless water heater system, or our furnace, because those two items will definitely go into a fault mode and cause you some issues. You have to go back, reset it, restart it, so on and so forth. So this is the best thing to do whenever you're pulling your unit out of storage and you've had the propane tanks off, or you just changed them out. Purge that air out of your system before you try to do anything else, and this is the best place to do it. Next, we'll go over our oven. We have our oven. Our oven can be initiated by using our knob all the way to the right. We'll turn it to that flame sense. The only difference on this one, we have to push it down. When we push it down and hold it, we're going to turn it until that pilot light's underneath. Now, even though that pilot is lit, we have to hold that button down for a little while until the thermocouple warms up. Once we pull it, our thumb off of it, we should see it stay lit. Once it stays lit, we can go ahead and turn our knob to our desired temperature, and our burner tube will light up. If the pilot light goes out whenever you pull off of that knob, then that means you didn't hold it down long enough, and you should go ahead and relight it. Also in our kitchen, we have our 12-volt refrigerator right here. We have different brands and some of the different models. They all have an on-off button in here and a temperature module to be able to change it from 1 to 5, cold to colder, whatever. And we also have our freezer up here. Our freezer, once again, just like our outside refrigerator, is going to freeze. So when we store our unit or we turn this system off, there's no drain lines on these refrigerators. So it's going to have a puddle of water in there. Want to get a towel, clean all that out, clean our fridge out, wipe it all down, get the moisture out of there. This is going to reduce the opportunity for mold and mildew to grow in our unit, as well as reduce the opportunity for water to drain out of here onto our wood trim all the way around our fridge and cause any damages. This is not a warrantable item. This is customer responsibility, so make sure we are defrosting and cleaning all of this out. Here we have our thermostat for our Furrion air conditioner system. To turn it on, we'll hold down that power mode button and our display will light up. And the first mode that we're going to talk about is our cool mode. Just like your AC at home, we're going to set our temperature, and we have a variety of fan options. We have auto, we have low, and we have high. Auto will turn that fan off whenever the compressor turns off, much like you want at home. If we want that, we want it on auto. High or low will keep that fan running all the time, whether that compressor is on or off, and it will continue to circulate air throughout our unit. Our next mode is our heat mode. This is for our gas furnace. Our gas furnace will initiate when it hits that set point, and the air is going to come out of the vents in our floor, not our rooftop air. Once that system has reached its set point, the system will turn off. There is no difference in the fan speeds on here. There's only one fan speed on a furnace, so pushing this button isn't going to change anything for your furnace. Fan. Fan is just going to circulate air throughout your unit. It's not going to cool it. We still have those options for high and low speed for that system. Our next mode is our dry mode. Our dry mode works as a dehumidifier without freezing you out of the unit. It will cool the unit down to the set point that you have it, so in this case 71 degrees, and it will alternate running and shutting off to try to help keep the air dry inside your unit without reducing that temperature down any further. When we're ready to shut that system off, we hold that mode power button on and that system will shut off. Below it we have our Furrion water heater system. We have our power indicator light right here. That means that system is on. If we want to shut it off, just hit that button one more time. We can see that every icon on here is off. Turning that system on will display everything. Of course, we have our set temperature right here. To reduce or increase that temperature, we'll hit our arrows on the side and it will set in. F and C right here represent Fahrenheit and Celsius for our temperature reading. If we want to change it to Celsius or Fahrenheit, we hit that button right there. We also have a flame icon right here. This will indicate when that water heater is actually running. So if we turn our hot water on, that flame indicator is going to turn on and that system is operational. To turn our system off, once again, we hold down that button right there and it will shut off. Here we have our ceiling assembly for our AC. We do have a filter right here that we need to pull down and clean every so often, and we have a vent right here. This vent is a quick dump vent. If we want to cool off this area quickly, we have our AC system on and it's going to blow air just right here. If we want the air to circulate through the vents, our ducted vents up in our rooftop, which this system is, we close that vent off and that will allow the air to flow through our system into our bedroom and towards the rear of our unit. Here below our fridge, we have our 110 and 12 volt center. This is where we'll find our 110 breakers for all of our appliances and our 12 volts for our components there. Blade fuses can be removed and checked to make sure they're not blown, and our breakers can be checked to make sure they're not tripped. Below that, you will see a little air grill under here, and you may hear a little fan running. That is where our converter is stored. Our converter is essentially a battery charger. It will change voltage from 110 to 12 volts in order to keep our battery system charged up whenever we are plugged into shore power. So it's perfectly normal to hear a little fan running under there. Mounted down here near the bathroom is our RV CO and LP detector. This is to let us know if any harmful gases are inside our unit. The alarm will go off, at which point we need to exit. This should be tested monthly by holding down that button right there and the alarm will go off. This is a 12 volt component, so we need to make sure we have good battery voltage for it to work properly. So here we are in our bathroom, fairly cut and dry. Of course, we have our shower right here. We do have a shower head on here that has an on-off switch. What this is used for is if we are dry camping, of course, we only have so much water in our fresh tank. We can only put so much water in our gray tank because we're not hooked to a dump station. So in order to conserve water, we can either choose to shut off our faucet from right here, or we can just shut it off at our shower head and we don't have to work with those fixtures to try to find that warm water spot again. We can just shut it off by hitting that switch right there. Now, I will tell you, the first burst of water, whenever you turn it back on, will be slightly cold, but within a second, that warm water will be coming back through. Now, our toilet is a RV toilet. In order to operate, of course, number one, use it and dump it. And you can dump it by the little lever down here at the base of that toilet. Now, if we're doing number two, we're putting solids in there. We barely push that pedal down and we want to fill this bowl with water. The reason we do that is once we flush, those solids can actually go down the pipe properly because there's enough water in the bowl to push it down. If we don't do that, it could cause some clogging issues in our RV system. We also only want to use RV toilet paper, no other toilet paper besides RV toilet paper, because RV toilet paper will degrade properly in our system. And we also want to pour chemical in our tanks or use the solid chemicals, whatever you wish. Put them in our tank and whenever we store our unit or during the process of using it, whatever you choose. Over by our sink, we do have our GFCI receptacle. This is our main receptacle. This receptacle has two buttons on it. One is our test button and one is our reset button. If we were to hit that test button, the little green light is going to go off on it, and we hit our reset button, it will reset. Now when we test it, it shuts off power to all our GFCI protected outlets, and when we reset it, it reestablishes that power. Now if these outlets were ever to trip on their own because of over amperage or outlets getting wet or anything like that, then that is going to trip on its own, and that green light's going to go out and issuing you a fault. At that point, we need to hit that reset switch to reestablish power to that outlet. Not too much to go over in our bedroom. We do have another mount for our TV, as well as a coax hookup and a 110 outlet. And we have some storage under the foot of our bed if we lift it up.
Well, we hope you found that resourceful. But wait, there's more information on our Great American RV YouTube channel. This channel right here, find the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We go over different products in this unit, and we'll take a deeper dive with more diagnostics, more information, as well as helpful tips when you're out camping. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, like, share, subscribe, do all those awesome things on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you found us. And keep watching here at Great American RV Superstores, where we bring the how-to you.